As someone that has reviewed laptops for many years, I constantly have people reaching out to me wondering, hey Alex, what laptop should I buy? With no additional useful information. And to those people I say, the MacBook Pro 14-inch, or if you want a game, the Asus G14. These are both fantastic laptops, but they're also kind of expensive. And if it was my money on the line, I would be getting this guy right here, the Asus TUF Gaming A14. This guy is absolutely fantastic, although why is it not as expensive? Let's give her a little bit of an unbox. Of course, as is tradition, this unboxing is a lie, and because we made way too many car videos over the last little while, I have actually been using this for 2 months as my daily gaming laptop, so I really put it through its paces. In the box, of course, we also get some warranty information, this is a quick start guide. Here we go, plug it in, turn it on. Very great. And also, what's this, warranty crap? Oh, complimentary accidental damage coverage. Very cool. Here we have our charger. To power the A14, we have a 200-watt charger, which is delivered over the proprietary rectangle connector here. Now, if you do want to charge it over USB-C, you can, because this USB-C right here will accept 100 watts of charging. Looking at the laptop itself, the overall design is pretty understated. You could take this anywhere that you want and not have to worry about RGB blowing up your spot if you're in an important business meeting or something like that. For materials, Asus has an aluminum CNC machined top cover. Everything else is plastic. Oh, it does feel nice though. How is the fingerprint rejection? It seems pretty decent. It's not the best that I have ever seen. And if we compare it to the G14, like, I didn't even bother cleaning this. It rejects fingerprints, so you cannot see a thing on that. I guess in fairness, we can do the MacBook Pro as well. Pretty bad. Yeah, pretty bad. Yeah, the TUF might have a tiny bit better fingerprint rejection. For I/O, on the right-hand side, we have a micro SD card reader at UHS 2 speeds, USB Type-C. This one does do display output, but it is connected to the internal graphics on the CPU, and also USB Type-A. On the left-hand side, we have a 3.5mm headphone microphone combo jack, USB Type-A. Once again, I really like to see that on both sides. USB Type-C. This one right here is connected directly to the NVIDIA GPU, so if you want more FPS, that is what you want to have. And also HDMI 2.1 that is also wired directly to the GPU, so you don't have those losses going through the integrated one. Oh, and of course, power. One thing to note is that on the back of the laptop, there is no I/O because instead that is just dedicated to keeping it cool, and the cooling of this is very impressive, but we'll look at that in a little bit. Let's see, can we lift it open with one finger? Oh, not a problem. That was super easy. Now, for a plastic chassis, I have to say, the build quality of this is exceptional. If we compare the rigidity, sorry Andy, I'm gonna move this. Show how terrible your table is. The G14 is all aluminum, and it is without a doubt quite a bit stiffer, but at the same time, this plastic, actually the aluminum's barely stiffer. The build quality of this is exceptional for a plastic machine. I have seen many aluminum laptops that are CNC unibody that do not have the rigidity of this plastic. So good job there, Asus. All right, do we turn it on, Andy? No, before that, I need to tell you about our Patreon because we don't have a sponsor. Go to the link down below, subscribe. That is the best way to support this channel and allow us to continue making these videos. Now, turn on. Does this one have a whoosh? No whoosh, you need to pay extra for the ROG laptops for that. Oh, right there though, you could see that Windows Hello has worked flawlessly on this machine. It uses some IR cameras up at the top here that look at my face, determine, that it's actually myself, and then boom, you are directly into Windows. And this has been one of the much better implementations that I have tried. Even if it's been on like way over here and maybe I'm like gaming on my TV, from pretty far away, it's picked up my face, no problem. One thing I do really appreciate that almost every gaming laptop has moved towards is a 16:10 display. This one right here is 2560 by 1600 and also 165 Hertz. Overall, I have found it quite good, but it's not exceptional. It does only cover 100% of sRGB, so for most things like gaming, going on the internet, that sort of stuff, it will be fine. And if you want to do some photo or video editing, it will be more than good enough because it is nice and accurate. The problem is though, you aren't going to be able to see all of the colors that you can if you spend a little bit extra for the G14. If we look at the display on this one, it is amazing. On the G14, we get a 2880 by 1880 OLED panel. So you have a tiny bit more resolution. I don't think you'll notice it, but you have an extra 100 nits, bringing it up to 500 nits total. And with the perfect blacks of the OLED, man, this right here is a really, really good display. Like you can just see right there from the top down that that one's not only much brighter and also has more color. Like we can compare this chrome logo right here. You can see just how much more vibrant it is on the OLED, with the only small downside of the G14 being the refresh rate. We only get 120 Hertz, but I don't actually think that's going to be a problem compared to the 160 because the response times of OLED are so damn good. Oh, and did I mention that this gets full DCI-P3 coverage? That's even more colors for you to play with. So if you do want to do professional color or video work, you can do it on this. Of course, if you get a MacBook, it completely destroys basically everything on Windows 1600 nits peak brightness. Just, you can't compete with that. I'm sorry guys. For now at least. Back to the A14 though, as long as I've been indoors, I have not found any problems with the display. It is matte, so it does reject reflections pretty well, but if you try and go outside, you won't be able to see anything. 400 nits is barely enough to maybe do some word editing, nothing more. You won't be able to watch a video or something. How is the performance though? In here we have the AMD Ryzen AI 7 350. That gets you 8 cores, 16 threads, and a maximum boost clock of 5 gigahertz. We also have 16 gigabytes of RAM, a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, Realtek Wi-Fi 6E, and for the GPU, we get an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5060. Now, the total system power of both of these laptops is 110 watts, and I did a fair bit of testing, and they both perform really, really well. To test the GPU cooling and power delivery, I set up the A14 and the G14 to run FurMark for an hour straight. This can be incredibly punishing, but both of them did exceptionally well. We can see here that the max that the GPU got to is 75.1 degrees Celsius, and for the most part, it stayed around 74.5, which is a really good showing, especially when you consider that the entire time for that hour, the GPU is consuming somewhere between 104 and 102 watts or so. So if you have poor cooling, these graphs right here, you would see over time, maybe the heat keeps on going up to 85 degrees or so, and then your wattage will go down, and so will your FPS. Whereas this guy right here, you do not need to worry about that at all. So once you get your game set up and start running, you are not going to have your FPS drop off of a cliff. I did have it in turbo mode while I was doing this though, so it was a little bit on the loud side, but we'll get to experience that in a sec. Before we start gaming though, I want to just have a quick little test of the keyboard and trackpad, because no matter how good a laptop is at gaming, it does not matter if the core features suck. So let's see here. The keyboard on the A14 is excellent. I'm going to give it a solid A because it's not just very nice to type on, but also incredibly consistent. This is really aided by the stiffness of this chassis. And overall, Asus, I think, have just done a really good job. It doesn't take very much force to press them in, and also they're very nice and smooth and quiet. The G14 is quite similar. I do think that on the G14, it has a tiny bit of an edge. The corners of these keys, I feel like make them a tiny bit more defined, and also the additional stiffness of the aluminum does increase the consistency even further. But between the two, I actually thought that they had identical key switches, but feeling them side by side like this, there are tiny differences. The ones in the G14 are a little bit snappier and they require just a tiny bit more force, but I'm going to give both of them a solid A because I can get up to full speed, no problem, very accurate typing, and also they're not too heavy so you don't have to worry about finger fatigue while you're gaming and holding W for a super long time or something like that. Both laptops also get a glass-topped trackpad. The one in the G14 is just a tiny bit bigger, although I would not give an edge to either of them because they are both really, really good. Now, one thing I did notice in my testing is that the touchpad feels incredible when you're using it on a desk like this, but if you take it off here and then sort of start using it on your legs in sort of an awkward position, it does have quite a bit of force to click it in. And sometimes I did find that I was wishing it was just a tiny bit easier to click it in if I'm not sat at a desk. All right, Andy, should we actually have a game? Yeah. Give the people what they want? Oh, when I opened up the game, I have a warning here. Over 80% of your system memory is used up. Consider closing applications or reboot. This has actually been a consistent problem that I've had over many different games. It seems like that in 2025, unfortunately, 16 gigabytes of RAM just is not quite enough. I have regularly had to do that sort of old school thing where you go in, close all of your tabs and stuff like that, just to have a nice consistent gaming experience. So if you do have the money, I would strongly recommend upgrading to 32 gigabytes of RAM. Oh yeah, you can really hear that there. It is not a quiet laptop at all times. It's currently in turbo mode and it's very far from silent. Now, I have found that in a lot of applications, you can get away with just using silent mode. If you're, I don't know, playing Hollow Knight Silksong or something like that, you do not need all that power. But if you do need all that power, I hope that you don't have open back headphones, or in my case, I use this plugged into the TV a whole bunch and it got kind of annoying. How loud is this? About 54 dB it seems. Let's see if we can do a little bit better. We're at 67 FPS. What's performance mode like? Does it chill it out a bit? Wow, that actually made a really big difference. We went down to about 44 decibels and we only lost 8 FPS or so. So I would strongly recommend not having it in turbo mode and just put it in performance because I think it's absolutely worth the sound trade-off to the performance trade-off. With it in performance mode, let's see how I can get this U-Haul down a hill. Do note that I am screen recording right now, but in the future, hopefully we will have a capture card so that we don't fully affect the performance of the machine like we did right here. Oh dear, I already hit a tree. Let's see, we're at 70 FPS on high settings in the graphics. One thing that I have found is a problem on occasion is that 8 gigabytes of RAM. It hasn't been a huge bottleneck, but in games in like Forza Horizon 5 or Battlefield, I have had to turn down a lot of the textures and stuff, or I will just simply run out of VRAM. Oh, my poor truck. Oh dear, that's not good. Does it still drive? Oh, it does still drive, wow.
Totally safe to drive.
Yeah, totally safe to drive. Oh, the axle's broken. Okay, one more try and I want to spectacularly crash this. We're going on the road. And we're going to see how the CPU and GPU manage when something really terrible happens. Gathering up some speed, but we didn't see that there was a corner there. Oh no. I really think that the laptop did not mind at all. Overall, it's doing a great job. GPU temp 73C, CPU also 73C. Good job, Asus. I'm curious how the CPU performance differs between these two. Now in the Asus G14, we have an AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX 370, which gets us 12 cores, 24 threads, and 5.1 gigahertz boost clock, which is 4 more cores, so in multi-threaded workloads, it should be able to put up quite a bit more fight, but it does not have additional power, so maybe that sort of levels out. It won't. One other benefit for the G14 is the RAM. It has 32 gigabytes as opposed to the 16 on the A14, and also in the G14 it's running at 8,000 mega transfers per second compared to the 7,500 mega transfers per second in the A14, although both of those are incredibly fast and faster than what you can do with SODIMM memory, so unfortunately that does mean your RAM is soldered on both of them. All right, which one of these is faster? And then we can act really surprised when the one with more cores is way faster. Wow. Okay, Cinebench has finally finished and the results will shock you. Going from the A14 to the G14, we have a 50% increase in cores. And going from the A14 to the G14, we have a 49.38% increase in performance. Yeah, it's pretty much 1-to-1. You get more cores, you get more performance. There's no nonsense, and of course they're the same architecture, so it is not surprising that more cores is just more better, and also more money. But that money is not just going towards more performance in the way of a 5070 Ti and that more better CPU. You also get much better speakers. So let's have a listen to the A14 first here, shall we? Now I did make a small attempt to find a new song to test all of our laptops on, but I just have way too much XP invested in CrabRave. Like, I can tell you within like plus 5 dB what the roll off is just by listening to the drop in the chorus. Like, I'm sorry, we're doing it. Sounds like shit. In here we have 2 down-firing speakers, so maybe it's a tiny bit better on the hard table. Nope, still terrible. There's no bass, and not really any treble either. Let's hear the drop. Yeah, that's, as we say in the biz, dog shit. Okay, here we have the A14 sounding like hot garbage. And there's the G14 sounding way better. There's actual bass, there's actual treble, and yeah, it's just a way better sound experience. But I do not just have my ears to tell me that, because we now have actual audio testing. To do the sound testing, I used a U-Mic 2, and it's just in my living room, so please take this with a grain of salt. Like, we can see our test rate here has a great big bump at 60 Hertz and down at 25. That is my refrigerator and HVAC, because I do not have a fancy testing room. But for laptops, that is not an issue. And we can see right here with the TUF A14, the bass starts rolling off at 600 Hertz. That's not even the low mids, and it's already cratering. It is a tiny bit better at half volume, but man, it stinks. You're not even getting into like the high bass. It's rolling off in the mids. We can compare it here to the Asus G14, where we can see that we have extension down to about 120 Hertz. And of course, the MacBook Pro M4 absolutely destroys both of them with extension down to about 100 Hertz and also more volume and more bass and more treble. One thing that I do find kind of interesting is that the A14 and the G14 both don't really have any dynamic range compression. Now, we can see that this MacBook has a lot of it. So if we look at the half volume right here and align them, In teal here is the MacBook Pro at half volume, and you can see it has way more bass and way more treble, giving you a nice satisfying house curve so you can sort of hear the bass and it rolls off nicely. And then once you get to full volume, it gets a bit more crushed and there's less bass overall because just simply you're hitting the limits of how far that speaker can travel. If we look at the G14 though, it is almost identical between the two. You do have a tiny bit more treble at full volume and a tiny bit more bass at half volume. And for the A14, it's just all junk. All of it's terrible. You get a tiny bit more bass at half volume right here, but it's not much. It's not meaningful. All right, let's check out the webcam in the A14. And overall, this little 1080p guy seems like it's doing a pretty good job. It's exposing for my face, even though there's a light back here that might screw it up a little bit. And if we turn around, it still is doing a pretty good job. Hello, Andy. Even facing directly into a studio light, it's doing pretty darn good. Overall, I would say I'm impressed. Like, it's nothing groundbreaking, like it's no FX3 of course, but for just a little webcam, it's doing what it needs to do. It's exposing for my face and it's all it needs to do. Cool. But how is the repairability? And also, just how similar is the A14 and the G14? I have seen people online say that they're just the same laptop, but one of them's plastic. Let's find out. Hey, I fixed it. If you want to sponsor a tech channel, we don't have any competing products. Oh, is this one on the corner captive? It is, heck yeah. I love that. After 11 Phillips head screws and a captive one on the side to start popping it off, we can get into the laptop. All right, very cool. We'll set that aside for a second. Oh, strike number one for the G14. I need to use a freaking Torx here instead of the nice Phillips. Oh no, did they? Oh, they put screws under little rubber feet. These things always fall off after you take them out. There we go. And after 11 T6 screws, I am into the G14. Now that we're into both laptops, we can see that they are in fact different motherboards. Now, this does have some benefits for the A14 because we have one SSD right here. And then also, if you want another one, you can stick it right here and it goes over to there. That is something that you cannot do in the G14, which only has one spot for an upgradable SSD. In here we can also see that on the G14 you get Wi-Fi 7, although both of them can be upgraded, which I do appreciate because Realtek and MediaTek are not my first choices for Wi-Fi cards. One thing that is the same though is the battery. Both of them get 73 watt hours of juice, but how much battery life that gets you does differ. On the G14 with its OLED panel, you're only able to get 9 hours and 46 minutes away from the wall while watching YouTube, which is pretty impressive for a gaming laptop, but it's a lot less impressive when you find out that the A14 was able to watch YouTube for 10 hours and 54 minutes entirely on battery. For a gaming laptop, that is absolutely exceptional. Would I be willing to trade an hour of battery life for an OLED screen? Probably. But which one should you spend your money on? Well, the A14 that we have right here as spec is $1,700 US, which is not cheap, but I do think it is quite a good value. As for the G14, it is $2,400 US, and you do get quite a bit more laptop for that, but I don't know if you get that much more laptop compared to the A14 right here. What does complicate things though are sales. Right now, this config of the G14 is on sale for $2,000, and I really do think that double the memory, faster CPU, faster GPU, way better screen, way better speakers, it is worth it for $400. But for $800, not so much. So if you're choosing between these two, of course, look for sales and see which one makes the most sense. But if you want to get the A14, I would not blame you because I have been using this for a couple months and it's honestly been freaking awesome. Just like it would be really awesome if you hit like, get subscribed, and let us know down below how you want us to shoot these videos. We have a bunch of different things that we could do, like what games do you want to see? The sky is the limit, and time's the limit. And of course, subscribe to our Patreon and have a great day.